Now moving
Across the pond.
across the pond, so to speak, to America land, the land of the free, apparently. Debatable, but we can have that debate another time. Yes, the Biden administration has now entered power, and it's all right because everyone on the left can now go back to brunch and fall asleep because we don't have to hear about the angry orange man anymore, and he's not going to tweet and make us feel bad about ourselves, and we can just pretend that all the bad thing doesn't happen anymore because the wonderful Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are just going to solve all our problems for us, not do anything terrible themselves. That is the narrative, however. And this is a photo that makes me vomit slightly. I'm not going to lie, but this is the sort of propaganda that's now being pumped out by particular areas of the liberal cognoscenti, and I don't like it. I also don't like the fact that John McCain's up there, who is a warmongering lunatic, and we're suddenly sort of airbrushing. We're making George Bush suddenly a sympathetic figure, making John McCain a sympathetic figure. No, these were horrible neocons. Let's not try and pretend, in the case of Bush, he's a war criminal. Let's not try and pretend these people aren't who they are. But that's now what's happening because the window, like we said, has moved so far to the right that we now think moderately not insane Republicans are suddenly well-grounded and humanitarian people. But what we want to look at today is what happened with various things in the Trump administration and the response that the media and the general population had to that, and what are comparable things that have happened with the first couple of weeks of the Joe Biden administration and how that's been responded to. So our first one is Janet Yellen, who has been named Treasury Secretary by Joe Biden. And if you guys remember back, there was Steve Mnuchin was the Treasury Secretary for Donald Trump. And it was so awful because he took loads and loads of lobbying money and he was bought and paid for by big corporations. And therefore he was, he couldn't be objective and he was a paid man. And this was terrible. And the US was so corrupt because he was Treasury Secretary. Suddenly, you don't hear the same outrage about Janet Yellen, do you? Who's taken at least $7 million from speaking fees and specifically took $800K from the hedge fund, which has been at the center of this whole GameStop affair. Now, let's not pretend to be naive about what speaking fees are. You go and give a speech to Goldman. Yeah, it's bribes. You go and give a speech to Goldman Sachs, who pay you an exorbitant amount of money, hundreds of thousands of pounds. And the understanding is either you're in a powerful position already, or when you're in a powerful position, they've got a direct phone to your office and you will do everything you can to get the policies that they want through. You will be supportive to them in return for their kind and generous donation to pay you huge amounts of money for speaking. But apparently that's not the case with Janet Yellen. She's taken all this money, but according to the press secretary, no, it's just because she deserves it. It's not because, it's corrupt or anything, because Joe Biden's administration can't possibly be corrupt, can it, Anton?
Well, I can't believe you'd think that $7 million from speaking fees would compromise her opinion on things or compromise how she looks on things.
It's outrageous, I know. How could I make such accusations?
I think you're bigoted, Mark, because she's a woman. I think that you've showed your ugly side there. How on earth could 7 million swing how she might stand on things? And I think that's quite amusing. Well, I'm guessing it's Melvin Capital was one that gave it. Yeah. I mean, I just remember when in the formation of the Trump cabinet back in, and we were going through all these names, and they're all like executives. Like, remember the Exxon Mobil guy and everything, and it was like, the richest cabinet ever. I was like, what's this? What's this?
Yeah.
Is even half the the focus or the criticism? Is this even being exposed? No, it's not. But every time, and I mean, no, I think another important part of this is the fact checking thing that was it the New York Times or someone, they've got a fact checking thing where they go through all of Trump's speeches and they fact check it all. Guess what's getting thrown out now? That they're not doing that anymore.
They're not doing the fact checking anymore because Biden administration would never lie. Don't be ridiculous. We don't need to fact check them. And this is exactly the double standard. So on to our next one is the defense secretary has now been nominated. And if you remember, there was a huge issue with Mark Esper, who was Trump's defense secretary, because he worked for the military contractor Raytheon, and he was so corrupt. And Elizabeth Warren grilled him big time during his hearing because, he was so corrupt. Oh, what's this? Oh, Joe Biden's defense secretary served on the board of Raytheon. So he's going to be super objective and not, be in the warmongering pocket of Raytheon, is he at all? No, of course not. Of course not. How dare we make such an assessment? Because Trump's guy was doing exactly the same thing, and he was evil, but this guy's awesome. He's going to be great.
It's just so embarrassing, because let's not forget, this guy was a 4-star general in the U.S. Army and presided over things like arming the moderates in Syria, which we now know is Al-Nusra Front, Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
Ever. But he presided over kind of disasters like this, and look, but now it's like, oh look, we've got a black man, in a strong position, and it's like, yes, but this is tokenism, because it's not even. It doesn't represent anything, a change in any way. It just pisses me off, because it just goes to show how identity politics is bad, in the sense that identity politics is co-opted by the ruling class to create because now anyone that stands against this guy, looks at his record or anything, will be looked down on as, well, you're a racist or something like that. And it's just interesting how identity politics is then used as a weapon to bash the very people over the head who may or may not have been pushing identity politics, and how it's corrupted by power and the power structures.
No, it's completely right. Oh, you can't criticize Janet Yellen. She's a woman. Yeah, but she's corrupt. Yeah, but she's a woman. Well, okay, that doesn't change the facts. Oh, you can't criticize our defense secretary. He's a minority. Yeah, that's great. We should have more minorities in government. But he's also bought and paid for by Raytheon, just like Trump's guy was. So what's the improvement? Oh, but we've got women and minorities in the cabinet. Yes, but if they're equally corrupt and bad people, that doesn't improve the situation. You've just made your corruption and badness more representative, which is not really an improvement.
If they're still neoliberal war hawks, there is no substantive change, and it doesn't matter. It's like, well, we've got the most diverse, cabinet ever. It doesn't matter if they're all Ivy Leaguers, and it doesn't matter to all the countries where the bombs land exactly the same.
Well, and this is the argument.
How diverse the cabinet who signed the order to bomb these places, like Yemen, Syria, etc. The bombs land the same, no matter how.
Doesn't matter if you've got rainbow flags painted onto those bombs; they're still dropping on Yemen. It doesn't matter. And this is the thing. This is the argument the Conservative Party in the UK makes all the time. Oh, we've got the most diverse cabinet ever. Yeah, they're all horrible people. Priti Patel may be a minority, of a minority background, rather. She is also a horrible person who wants the death penalty to be brought back. But her being a minority doesn't change that. It's ridiculous. Rishi Sunak is a minority. He was literally making the financial instruments that crashed the economy in 2008. So he's a horrible person, and it goes on. So Donald Trump, he was so bad for the environment. He took us out of the Paris Accords. He was pro-drilling, fracking. Oh, but Joe Biden's going to change all that. He signed us back to the Paris Accords, and he's going to stop all this horrible polluting. Oh, wait, hold on a minute. In the first 2 weeks, Biden administration has approved 31 drilling permits, the majority on coastal waters, where drilling is at the most dangerous, because you end up with sort of a Deepwater Horizon situation, where if an accident happens, you end up with oil contaminating the sea and destroying wildlife. Excellent. Well done, Biden. Warrior for the climate. So we're all upset about Trump being against the climate, but here we are, Joe Biden, first 2 weeks, propping up the oil industry, approving new permits, not even just letting the current ones expire and drill as much as they can and then extract everything. No, he's giving them new ones. But he's going to address climate change, guys. Yes, he's going to do it.
And I just think this goes to show, once again, Biden, nothing will fundamentally change, Boom.
Well, he said that. He said nothing will fundamentally change, which we've spoken about in a previous video. So, It's ridiculous.
So to show, and it goes to show that we actually, we really lose sight of our values if we don't hold our side to account.
We have to.
Um, and I would even argue that Biden isn't on our side because he is so, right wing, war hawk or whatever. But yeah, it just goes to show that our arguments again, and it just gives ammunition to the right wing, who will then say like, oh, you don't give a fuck,
Yeah, you don't care.
because we're undermining our own positions here.
Exactly. And this here we go again. Next one. Hundreds deported under Biden in the first 2 weeks, including witnesses to a massacre. Hold on. I thought the whole reason Trump was so bad is because he deported people. Joe Biden's doing the same thing. He said he campaigned on stopping it, and yet he's doing the same thing already. And this meme here is fantastic.
I love this one.
I don't know if anyone's seen it before, but so there's a news report here which says obviously the Biden admin is reopening overflow facilities in Texas for unaccompanied migrant children apprehended at the US-Mexico border, and obviously it's excellent. So the first panel is kids in cages. How terrible! That's obviously when Donald Trump was doing it. Now that Biden's doing it, it's unaccompanied migrant children in overflow facilities, not cages, overflow facilities.
Yeah.
That's what makes it so hypocritical, and everyone sees it. Everyone sees it and goes, "Well, this is bullshit." Except now that the left wingers who have sold out because we had to get Biden elected, they won't acknowledge this. They won't acknowledge the hypocrisy.
And remember the photo ops of AOC and other people going to those, detention centres, up against the chain link fence.
Yeah.
Oh, how crazy is this? Where are you now?
Where are you now? And on those cages, who built them?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, hold on a second. Obama administrations had the cages built for immigrants. Detention facilities, which some to have referred to as cages, were built under Barack Obama's administration in 2014. So all that stuff about, oh no, Donald Trump's locking up people and children.
Yeah.
Started under Obama, guys.
Camps. And it's like, yes, but let's have a bit of fucking awareness of where they came from.
Who started it?
Yeah, who started it, who maintains it, and who's going to carry it on.
Yeah.
And it's just embarrassing because it all kind of goes back to Adam Curtis, hypernormalization, all about perception management, and things are only highlighted when it is politically beneficial for them to do so. But no substantive change is happening. We're just going to highlight things and make the public, create narratives that then the public will buy and or will be angry at the orange man. And meanwhile, the same thing happens day after day, year after year.
Nothing
families
changes.
being split up, kids being split up from their parents and things like that. But it's all right because we got, vote blue no matter who.
We got Trump out, so that's the only thing that matters, and we can all go back to brunch. And this is the thing: it's okay, all right. So the Obama administration actually built the cages. Guess who was vice president then? Oh wait, Biden. And then we all got angry when Trump was doing it. Biden's president now, and turns out he's using those cages as well. Speaking of things that happened whilst Joe Biden was vice president. And now is president, and here we go. Some things never changed. Biden administration likely to keep troops in Afghanistan. Still, that war's been going on for what, 19, 20 years now?
20 years now.
Time to leave. But not Joe Biden. Not Joe Biden. He wouldn't possibly. But what did he campaign on? Hold on a second. Biden said he would end the US involvement in endless wars that don't have an end in sight. I find that a very weird statement because, as vice president under Obama's administration, they increased the number of wars from 2 to 7. They increased their involvement in interventions. He started a lot of those endless wars, or didn't end them because Obama campaigned on, and Joe Biden by association campaigned on ending the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. That never happened, did it?
No. And I think what's so embarrassing about this is they had a deal signed with the Taliban or whatever that they were going to pull out troops in May or something like that. And now we're going back on that promise. It's another Iran deal where we're gonna just go against what is agreed and whatever. And it's so depressing because the kind of narrative of the last couple of years is that, you know, Trump wants a war, World War III, you know, oh, isn't he such a warmonger, blah 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 blah. Biden is actively putting more you know, troops in the field than Trump was.
Yeah.
But once again, we lose sight of that. And the worrying thing about Afghanistan is there's there's deliberate vagaries where it's like, oh, we haven't completed our mission or something. What's the mission?
What's the mission? What
What's
is the
the
mission?
mission?
Who can
You know?
remember?
And I'll never forget the interview with the former Afghanistan, what was his name, Hamid Khan or something like that.
I can't. I can see his face with his fun little hat, but I can't remember what he's called. now.
Yeah, absolute legend.
I want that hat. I'm jealous about that.
Yeah, Hamid Karzai, sorry, not Khan. In 2013, when he said, you know, the US intervention hasn't actually benefited you know, the Taliban control more ground than they ever have now.
Yeah.
After 20 years, you know, how many bombs are we going to have to drop? How many billions are we going to blow before we realize, you know, we've got no right being in this country. The people don't want us here in this country.
No.
And it just props up, you know, near imperialism and things like this. And but it's all right because Biden did it.
Yeah, Biden and Obama did it, and then Trump didn't really do anything. Actually, he didn't start any new wars. He didn't invade any new countries.
He didn't pull out like he said he would, but he didn't add it. He pulled a few thousand people out. So step in the right direction, I guess. But
and that's going to all get reversed by Biden immediately. He's going to send troops back in. There's already saying, oh, he's going to send more troops to Iraq, and you know the tensions are building up with Iran and all this sort of stuff. And this is what happens. And you look at what happened. The legacy that he left as vice president. They were warmongers. You look at this graph here. Drone strikes between the Bush administration and the Obama administration, it's like on different planets. It's just incredible. You look at that and you say, oh my God, you know, Bush was the war criminal and should be in prison. But I mean,
what is Obama? But he's celebrated, you know.
And this was Obama and Biden. And look at that funding as well in the Bush years and then in the Obama Biden years. It's the same thing.
Look how it is by a factor of 10 there. Because the drone strikes is 50.
Yeah.
Obama 500. 10 times more. You know?
Exactly. And this is the thing, you know, extrajudicial killings. He started killing American citizens with drones.
The guy
with no due process.
And what I really worry about is Iran. And because I think Iran is less of a risk to the world and to the region than Saudi Arabia. But we support Saudi Arabia. We're actively supporting them in a bleeding war. And then by
against the enemy.
These economic it's the biggest modern day famine ever.
No one talks about it.
You know, nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about these starving kids. And we've put on economic sanctions. So even though the majority of Yemen is run by the Houthis, which are the rebels, we don't recognize them, and we block, you know, transactions happening with the government, which actually controls the majority of the land and is supported by the majority of the people. The Iran thing, I really worry about quite a lot, because we've whacked. You know, this isn't necessarily a society which is so, and I would say they're more, you know, open to the rest of the world than Saudi Arabia is. You know,
100%.
I've seen countless journalists go to Iran and be like, the average Iranian is a lot more open and welcoming and tolerant than Saudi Arabia is. And then by putting on these economic sanctions, which, let's face it, is warfare, economic warfare, by stopping medicines from getting to normal people, by, you know, and then the Iranian government can just be like, look, I mean, it was like the oil for food program in Iraq in the 90s, where the sanctions didn't hurt the people leading it; it hurt the average person. You know, and in doing that, you're doing the opposite effect. You're allowing the leadership to be like, look, your life is so hard because the US and the West is putting all these economic sanctions on us. You're radicalizing the youth who may be more open to us. So why don't we open up the Iranian market to the world and allow the kind of liberalizing factors that being an open country would be? Because if we really look down on it, although Iran is, a theocracy to a certain extent, they are a capitalist a country. There really isn't much different economically than the rest of the world. They're not like a theocracy politically or anything like that, but they're just as liberal in their markets and things like that than anyone else. There isn't like
Yeah.
state, you know.
It's not like they're North Korea. It's made to sound like they are, and they're really not. And I don't. The problem is with all of this, I don't think Joe Biden is the man, or the Democrats even. They love war. They love war, and things are not going to improve.
No.
And we're going to end up in a situation where we'll get to the end of the Biden administration, if the first couple of weeks are anything to go by, things either will not have improved or will have gotten worse, and that's a terrible situation. Things are awful. Things are awful right now.
And we're going to look back on it in rose-tinted glasses.
Yeah, of course we are, because the media is going to applaud him all the way.